Let's talk about a couple DMs that I continually get inside of a couple different messaging services that I think that we should just address here together. We'll get these things out. That way it doesn't continue to keep coming back as I kind of answer individual people on these questions as they come forward. And we can just kind of put it out there, discuss it now, and then move on with our lives and other things. So if you're new here, guys, hit that subscribe, hit that notify, and hit the like. Helps out a ton. We can get 20 likes, guys. It's not that hard. Just hit that button. It's free charge. Helps out a ton. We talk about investing, market, and what's happening in the Pokemon TCG on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then on Sunday, we do an opening of some Pokemon product just to check it out and what's new on the Pokemon TCG. But the question I keep getting on our DMs is, do we invest in MetaZoo? I know this is a bipolar subject, guys. Don't leave, listen, hear me out on this one, because I know some people just don't want to hear it. Some people are all for it, but I get the question. I feel that it just needs to come out so everybody hears it, and we'll see where, what it goes. To me, for us, MetaZoo is just not what we're looking for. There's too much risk right now in this set. There's a couple things that I don't necessarily agree with MetaZoo. I agree with some things in it. This, to me, the overall scheme of things, it's just not stable enough for us to be comfortable in investing any kind of money into it. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I could be completely wrong, and it might do fantastic. It might just do as well as Flesh and Blood and have some really good sets and start getting some traction, because now Flesh and Blood is coming up just past its 2-year anniversary, and it's still doing really well. It's gaining traction, it's moving forward, it's really becoming a good TCG sitting out there in the market. But one thing that I have against MetaZoo is MetaZoo in itself has got a lot of hype pushed behind it, because the creator did a lot with social media and with content creators to get this product out there, to advertise it, to really try and get the first release of this product going. He did a fantastic job. He made this product look fantastic. He got creators on board. He got this stuff getting pushed through investing channels and everything else, and it did really well. It started out at about $250 on release, and it quickly went up to about $400 to $450 right after that. Within the first 3 to 4 weeks, it was at about $450. And since then, it's continued to creep forward all the way up to about $775 to $850, just depending on where you find it and look. So in general, that set's done really well since July 30th release. Now, we just had Nightfall released here a week ago, and that set has not done as well. The creator didn't put as much money into it, and it has not moved as well as the first set did with Crypt Nation. Nightfall has had a little slower movement. Now, the question is that because the first edition print run had a lot more? It could be. It could also be that it wasn't pushed as heavy by the content creators and by social media. He didn't spend as much money on the advertising campaign, and that has slowed its progression down to maybe where it should be naturally going. Nightfall is really going to be a tale of how this is going to go. I think if you don't see this set starting to get some traction here shortly, even with the first edition set, it's going to kind of stall out MetaZoo in general, potentially. Can that change? Yes, more people might get on board, more people might be spending. I think that $250 price tag is really holding people back. That's really held me back from wanting to put it towards it, because $250, I could purchase quite a bit of Pokemon product that could be more safer and more successful potentially than MetaZoo with the questions involved with it. There's also the potential with MetaZoo that this is always my biggest issue with MetaZoo is that there's so much speculation on it that you can't tell if it's the speculation that's driving that market or if it's actually the cards. The actual gameplay itself is extremely difficult. Watch the gameplay now, watch tournament play on this, and some cards you can't even use their full potential because you live in Wisconsin. You can't get the full potential because you live in certain places. Or because you're playing in a building, you can't get the full potential of some cards. When you get that limitation on a TCG, it gets kind of frustrating that I have this really good card, but because I don't live in a desert, I can't get the other 20 hit points out of this card. Or if I don't live in a forest fire prone area, I can't use the full fire force of this card. You know, there's just these things in that set that's just oddities, and I understand it makes it a little bit more challenging and interesting, but on the other hand, it can also make the game frustrating and make it so the cards don't have demand, and really starts changing the dynamic of how the sales of these things happen. But let's look at the first editions of Flesh and Blood that was released in October of 2019. Both Welcome of Wrath and Arcadian Rising were released at the same time, and both booster boxes are sitting at about $45,000 to $5,000 a piece. The one thing that I will say about Flesh and Blood versus MetaZoo is that MetaZoo is difficult, it's a different dynamic, and it doesn't have anime behind it. Flesh and Blood does not have an anime set behind it, but the gameplay is almost identical to Magic. So the setup, the way you play it, your one character drives the whole thing, your whole stance on it is all the same. So that in itself makes it completely different dynamic and more easy to understand, and you take Magic the Gathering players and put them into Flesh and Blood, and they can play this game successfully with very little learning curve to it. They just change, you know, instead of having the wizards, goblins, and that kind of stuff, you've got now ninjas and wizards and pirates. So it just kind of changes the dynamic of what the players are, the characters' roles are, but the actual gameplay and tournament play itself are the same. That makes it very difficult for that transition. The other one that I'm going to point out is there's another one that was released on October 15th, which is My Heroes Academia. Another set that has an anime series behind it, now going to the TCG and looking at going into a tournament setting also. The one thing I do like about this set is that it retailed out, or MSRP'd out at $80 of set, $79.99. It's up to $80.95 on the first edition, and they did have a first edition which they did not announce very well. Pokinav pointed this out during his kind of release speech on this set when it was coming out for his PokeRealm. And the other thing is too is that Jasco has done a horrible job of advertising this set. I think that the set has potential. It's a really low step in price compared to MetaZoo, and you could actually get into that set right now for $90 to $95. And depending on how it goes through, you might see some good return on this one also over the next year, just because Jasco is not pushing it as well. But it has the anime. Tournament play is also a little bit more dynamic, but the tournament play is also learnable fairly easily. After watching a little bit on that, it's not too bad to do that. But like I said, these are all things that can really affect how a TCG will perform over time. Is MetaZoo completely a bad thing? Is it not going to perform? I can't tell you. The risk assessment for me, it's too risky for me to want to put money into it. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. This set could do fantastic, and it could be what everybody's looking for in a new TCG. It may explode, and, you know, I'm going to sit here and go, well, my risk assessment was wrong. It happens, you know, it is what it is, and I think everybody just needs to do their own risk assessment on this. And if you feel that it's too high for you and too risky for you to put that kind of money out on it, probably hold off on it. It's too new. There's going to be more opportunities into it if it does continue. But if I was honestly going to sit there and say 5 years down the road, which set would I see being more successful or being around more, Flesh and Blood would be the one that I would go for. MetaZoo is too much of a gamble for me, and I don't know if that's going to continue to push or just fall out. But that's just what I'm thinking. If you guys think differently, that's fine. Put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys actually think, or what kind of disagreements you have, so we can have a little discussion about it. But other than that, we're just going to call it nights. Hopefully you guys had a great week so far. I know it's only Wednesday. Hopefully you got a good weekend planned. Other than that, if you're new here, be sure you hit that subscribe, that like, and that notify. It really does help us out, guys. Like this kind of content, check out these two videos over here, and we will see you next time here on Northwoods Collectors.